G'day guys, welcome back to your English Aussie and welcome to our first reaction stream to the Gameweek 20 results on Saturday. Lots of stuff to talk through. A lot of you guys requested doing a stream today going through the game results from yesterday, talking through some of the tactical observations for the matches that we had, and I'm planning to go through all of the games from yesterday, and maybe we'll touch on a couple of the games coming up today. We'll talk through all the latest with the Liverpool, Manchester United, the weather warnings, what's going on with those. We'll talk through some of the team news, and we'll also talk about how the game week's gone for you guys. I did make this one subscribers only comments, so if you want team reviews done or talk through your transfer plans, feel free, please subscribe to the channel, post your team IDs in the chat and I will put you guys up on the screen, and I will go through your teams and we can talk through any questions you want. Of course, if you've got any tactical questions, like on the tactical analysis side, or what you think on teams and you want me to break it down a little bit further, please let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to go through all sorts of that stuff. So yeah, I think maybe we'll get into the games. We'll talk through how they went, and yeah, after that, of course, open up to comments from any of you guys. Yeah, so the first game of the night was Tottenham v Newcastle, and I felt like, to be honest, it was a bit of a game of two halves, really. Solanke obviously scored early on for Tottenham, and Tottenham obviously playing with a super depleted team. Austin in goal. At one point in the second half, they had no centre-backs on their pitch whatsoever. They were playing with four full-backs. And Archie Gray at centre-back as well. So obviously fielding a slightly undermanned team. Sutton, morning Jones, eager to see you, mate. Got this reaction stream up for you as requested today. Hope yesterday went well for your team. I can sort of have a chat through how it went for my guys later. We did make it up to 35k overnight, so it was a good morning for us. But yeah, I think obviously Tottenham started with that goal despite Son and Maddison starting on the bench. There was an illness that went through the Spurs camp. Fraser Forster obviously out and Austin replaced him. And yes, Son and Maddison. It was sort of almost said from Ange that they were almost being rested to be fresh. I wonder whether it was a case of like they did have a small illness and they didn't want to risk them for the full 90 minutes, given that Tottenham have to play again so soon. But yeah, I felt like that first half, Newcastle came out, pressed super high, and that three in midfield of Bruno, Tonali and Joelinton just completely overran Spurs. After that Solanke goal, once Spurs managed to get that first goal, which we'll go on to talk about what we thought about it, you could see that the press between Joelinton, Tonali and Bruno caused a lot of problems for Spurs. They had so much energy in that portion of the pitch, and that's what we've been talking about now the last week or so. Is all the teams that show that sort of high energy, high intensity are causing problems to a lot of the teams that are struggling in transition this year, and are able to sort of sustain attacks and look a lot stronger teams. So yeah, I just felt like Spurs sort of overran them in that. Newcastle overran them in that first half a little bit, and yeah, managed to really get on top. Neil's another shock for me. Pedro benching backfired too. Oh no, mate. How many points this week so far, mate? I'm actually sitting on 49 points this week, and that's because I took a -4 for Brian Mbeumo because I didn't have enough players playing this week. It's probably the best -4 I've ever taken in my team. 19 points for Mbeumo. Yeah, it was a pretty nice sort of game week for me. Yeah, so obviously Ethan, hey mate, can I quickly check your team? Yeah, no worries, man. I'll chuck you up on stream and then I'll get back to talking tactics. 29 nil's probably not too bad if you've got a couple of guys playing in that Liverpool game, which hopefully will be on. There are severe weather warnings, amber weather warnings at the moment, and I think at 9 o'clock UK time, which I think might be now. Can I do the conversion? Let me just check what on time. Yeah, so they are doing like a safety meeting at the moment, so possibly on this stream we'll find out whether that game has been called off or anything's happened. But yeah, in the meantime, Ethan, let me get you up on stream, mate. Nish, how's it going, mate? Good to see you. Yeah, good week for me today, mate. I'm 49 points so far, 45 with my 4-point hit from Boomo. But yeah, it did go pretty well for me this week. Heath, let's have a look. Team this week, 43 points. Good, really good start to the week. Salah, Cap, Robinson, Trent, Bruno. Yeah, I mean, like really good game week for you so far. Munoz on the bench. Probably better for me to called off. Yeah, Jackson, João Pedro, Isaac. I'm still fine with Nicholas Jackson. I do have some stuff to talk about with him this week about how his finishing sort of slightly gone downhill a little bit over the last few weeks, but he is probably someone I'd still look at. I think Bruno's nice. Man United have a nice fixture run coming up from an attacking perspective. Their next few games are Southampton, Brighton, Fulham, Palace, Tottenham, Everton, Ipswich. Like pretty good. I think it's the Enzo Palmer Jackson triple up for me, like the Chelsea triple up, that I think you need to look into. Whether it's move Nicholas Jackson on if you're not comfortable with him, or whether it's move Enzo on. I think one of those two are probably what you need to be looking at, Heath. I think relatively the rest of your team, I like Rodgers, I like Munoz, Greaves as the fodder's perfect, Fabianski as the backup keeper's perfect, Trent, Kirkes, Robinson. I would say Kirkes now got to the end of its tether. That Everton game was like the last of Bournemouth's nice games. Obviously a really nice way to sign out with him, with the assist and the clean sheet. Robinson, of course, I think it's also fantastic. So for me, I would look at moving Kirkes and then an Enzo or Jackson. Probably my suggestions would be maybe Lewis Hall for Kirkes, and then Jackson / Enzo. I think it's probably easier to move a Jackson. Obviously, like you could go to almost any striker, but there's not an easy pick. I would say after 21, Spurs' fixtures get a little bit nicer. But I mean, Chelsea's fixtures look really nice with Wolves, City, West Ham, Brighton, Villa, Southampton, Leicester from 22 to 28. So I'd almost think you can hold on to Jackson potentially. And maybe it's like Enzo that you move out of. And then you've got Rodgers, Salah, Fernandes, Palmer that you're probably going to play every week over that time. And you can maybe move Enzo to another 5 million, maybe like a Jacob Murphy at Newcastle, something like that. That's probably what I'd look to do, and maybe a Kirkes to a Hall. But look, no real immediate transfers that you need to do. You could almost continue to roll until something becomes, like I'd imagine next week you can play pretty much everybody else. So yeah, you could easily roll and wait till the teams that you're playing against for your whole 11, that you're showing 11, you'd like to get someone else in that's an easier game. That's what I would say. Otherwise, yeah, nice team. I think it looks good. Just flicking back over. Jonesy, why would you say Son didn't start and was so poor? I ended up on 38 on one of my teams. The other two was in 20-something. Team of 38 is Robinson, Salah, Wood and Raul. That one should be nice. What do you first call you, Nils? My name's Adam, mate. Adam is my name. English Aussie is fine though, mate. English, whatever you want to go for. I've been called a lot worse, so yeah. Yeah, look, I think the Son not starting was purely a fact of Spurs have quite a few fixtures coming up. There was obviously illness in the camp, so I wonder whether they did have like, I know he didn't say they had an illness, but they might have had a little bit of an illness, and they didn't want to risk them, given that they have that Carabao Cup game against Liverpool on, I think it's the 9th, which is Thursday, is it? Thursday, yeah. So they have that Carabao Cup game against Liverpool on the 9th. And I think that's obviously really important to Spurs. Yeah, it is, thanks, mate. I think that's important to Spurs, given that they obviously struggle to win silverware. Luca's not on the stream, so I can say that at the moment. But yeah, I think that's probably the reason why they were both rested, especially with the team as it was. But to be honest, like, second half, I thought Spurs were really good. I actually thought Lucas Bergwijn in the midfield showed the sort of energy that we were looking for, that Newcastle had in that midfield with the Bruno, Joelinton and Tonali. And then it was almost like those three, they pressed so high in the first half, and in the second half they basically like sat off a little bit at Newcastle. Similar actually to last week against Man United, when Man United changed things up and Newcastle sort of sat a little bit deeper, allowed them to play a little bit more, and Spurs looked really dangerous towards the end of that game. Newcastle were hanging on a little bit. I mean, Bruno Guimaraes still, I thought, was sensational in that game. He still managed to get up the field and do some pressing. But I mean, look, it's one of two. Like, from somebody who's obviously looking for like FPL points and stuff, you obviously want them to go up, press, win the ball high, cause them problems and get a goal. But you're thinking from Eddie Howe's perspective, he's thinking 2-1, I want to protect the game. We don't need to commit these guys forwards and press them as high. Let's drop in, be in a consistent structure. And that's sort of how they went about in the second half. Obviously, for those of us that have Newcastle players, Paul's clean sheet was already cancelled out. We're like, come on, go forward to get a goal. But, I mean, they held out for that 2-1. From a Spurs perspective, yeah, I did find, obviously, the lineup bemusing, especially with the form they've been in. And I thought Brennan Johnson was just... He's been like up and down, just lack of consistency. But what I found interesting with him was today, the last 2 weeks, I think like his creativity was actually reasonable. Like he started getting involved in the build-up. Looked like he was able to produce crosses, produce balls. Absolutely nothing of that. Absolutely nothing of that yesterday. But he's one of those guys that he's almost like a number 9. Like, he just has that sort of instinct to be in the right place at the right time, and that's how like he's been scoring his goals this year. He sort of just like poaches goals, either rebounds off the keeper or like getting in there on the back post into the like 6-yard box, and that's sort of he's been able to get FPL returns just because of that sort of instinct that he has to get in the right place at the right time. As a player, I don't love him personally. Like I much prefer Spurs, as I've spoken about before, having like Cooley at the 10, Cooley on the right, Maddison at the 10, and Son on the left. But yeah, I thought definitely he was able to sort of instinctively get into those positions. Almost scored a couple of times on the rebounds. And then yeah, obviously the big talking point in that game was the handball from Joelinton. Look, the letters of the law say that is not a handball. His hand was obviously like in a natural position, and not in an unnatural position, and sort of down by his side, and therefore isn't considered a handball. However, look, they clearly gained an advantage from that. Like, Newcastle obviously gained an advantage from that, and without that wouldn't have been able to score the goal. And in my opinion, like, the rules need to change, because I agree that the ref made the right decision, and you can't blame the ref because he absolutely made the right call with the letters of the law. But the law is stupid. Like, how can you possibly allow this guy to just hit his hand, bounce forwards, and then score the goal? I don't know. I don't think that was right. Jonesy, I swapped Son for Savio before Son went down last night. Do you think Savio will keep his fantastic performances up? Look, That is something, again, that we can go on to talk about in this Man City v West Ham section. I think Savio on the left wing is really good for City. I think I was saying in the live stream before that Man City have been at their best when their wingers get down to the byline, cut the ball back, cross the ball, or when they're inside the 18-yard box. So if you think back to when you had like Raheem Sterling playing for City, he was always like inside that 18-yard box, like picking up the ball, trying to cut back to the strikers and stuff. Same with Riyad Mahrez. They were always like on the edge of the box, making the defenders think about whether they could make a tackle. And I think the issue with Savinho when he was on the right-hand side was he would naturally cut in onto his right foot, and Foden was in that sort of 10 half space, and he would close the space off to Foden, and so Foden was getting visibly frustrated. Haaland was also in and around that sort of space, and then the way that teams played with these narrow box midfields against City allowed them to have it out wide because they were always sort of coming inside and trying to play this sort of intricate play through the middle, and so they were narrowing the space and making it easier to defend. With Savio sort of taking on his defender, going down the line, I think that opens up a lot more options. He's obviously got the ability to play that ball into the box for Haaland, who that's what he feeds off, balls into the box. He's a big monster in the box, right? He can win headers, he can go and get the ball. Same for cutbacks. He naturally, instinctively sniffs out those chances and gets into the right position. Some would say a la Brennan Johnson. But yeah, so if Savinho can get into those sort of positions, he's definitely. I was actually watching that game thinking about maybe he's somebody I need to have a look at for my FPL team. The only thing I would say is City's fixture run. Basically, they've got Brentford and Ipswich, and then after that it's Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool. So that is probably the nastiest run you could have at the moment for fixtures. After that, they do have Tottenham, Forest, and then from 29, Brighton, Leicester, United, Palace, Everton, Villa, Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham to the end of the season, which is really nice. And I always thought of this 5-game week run for Man City as basically a trial for me about whether I wanted to bring their players in when they go into that nice fixed run in the future. So for me, I think Savinho is a nice pick. I think you've got to sort of hope for the best over those 4 fixtures, the Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool. But then after that, that's definitely someone that I'd be looking to bring in my team from sort of 27, 28, 29. Could be a really nice sort of differential pick. And even over this period, like if they can perform against some of those bigger teams, he could be a really nice pick for City. So yeah, that's sort of my thought. Just one final thing on the Newcastle-Tottenham game before we move on, is I did think that, or maybe 2 final things. I thought Isak was a little bit sloppy actually today. He's been in superb form recently, but his touches were a little bit sloppy. He could have had a little bit more in that game if he was just a little bit more sharper with his movement. I think maybe it was just, he had made a couple of bad touches, but it was just something noticeable that I saw in that game. Maybe he's not a thing that will continue. He's been in fantastic form, but I thought I'd call it out for you guys. Also, Kulusevski on Gordon, like my view, he just shouldered him in the nose. Isn't that a pen? I thought that was a bemusing decision. I just thought he just shouldered him in the nose. In that Man City game, otherwise, except for that, I thought they looked nicer from an attacking perspective with Savinho on the left, obviously. From a defensive perspective, they looked awful again. If West Ham were a good team, and I apologise for West Ham fans that I know listen to my streams, if West Ham were a better team, West Ham could have scored 4 or 5 goals. The City defence were backpedaling, backing off all the runners. When Kudus was running at Guardiola looked like he was terrified of what was going on. He almost looked like a lost puppy when he was defending. I put that as a bit of a joke on the screen. Any long-term replacements for Watkins if you already hold Wood and Isak? I think we were talking about a live stream last week. Wissa is a really interesting shout with Brentford's fixtures coming up. If you don't already have Mbeumo, and really after this week, if you do already have an Mbeumo, I think Wissa could be a really interesting pick. Otherwise, I struggle. Like, I've got Jesus in my team, so maybe it's just a bit of bias. But yeah, Arsenal looked poor, like not creative at all. So I'd almost say I like Wissa a little bit more. I still like Nicholas Jackson. I thought his finishing was a bit suspect this week, and we'll talk about him a little bit in a bit. But yeah, I would probably say Wissa, Jackson and Jesus. I think Jesus is a bit more of a differential if Arsenal do find it. Of course, Tottenham next week, so it could be absolute carnage, depending on what defenders are available. Obviously, Dragusin couldn't even last the 90 minutes for Tottenham. He got taken off at half time, so that was a bit of an issue. And Bumo fixtures are horrible. No, do you know what? From an attacking perspective, let's pop this up on the screen. I actually think they're really nice. Do I have my fixture ticker? Sorry, let me just get my fixture ticker. I have my own little fixture ticker. Look at this attacking fixture difficulties. Let's look at Brentford, right? Southampton, Man City next week. I am genuinely considering captaining Brian Mbeumo. I know that's crazy. Liverpool have Nottingham Forest. That's one of the only games this season that Salah's blanked. I'm genuinely considering captaining Brian Mbeumo against Man City. Man City are terrible in transition. Brentford look dynamite in transition against Southampton. And then Liverpool, obviously, tough game. But then after that, Palace, Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully we're back up and running now. Should be back. Let me know if any issues. Thanks, Foggy. I was sort of just discussing who I would pick for Man City. Also, nice to see you back in the chat, Fogs. I think my thoughts are Savinho is probably my favourite for Man City, to be honest. I think he's definitely... Oh, nice one, Jonesy. Yeah, I think he's definitely the guy that I would look at. There's not like I'd avoid the City defence like the plague, to be honest, because they have been horrific defensively lately. So yeah, for me, it's just it would just be Savinho. It's probably the only one I'd be looking at. Yeah, probably another thing that I should talk about is the predictions this week in the game. So far, I'm 7 out of 7 for predictions. We went Spurs and Newcastle, both teams to score. Villa, Leicester 2+ goals. Bournemouth clean sheet. Palace, Chelsea, both teams to score. City to win. Brentford 2+ goals scored. Brighton and Arsenal 2+ goals scored. So we got 3 games to go. Fulham, Ipswich 2 or less. Salah to return, which is a bit of a cheat code, really. And both teams to score at Wolves v Forest. We could go 10 for 10 this week, which would be insane to get all 10 predictions correct for this game week. So yeah, I think I like Mbeumo. I definitely think Savinho could be an option going forwards. And yeah, I think City defence is, you've got to get rid of them ASAP. Guardiola even said in his post-match press conference, he thought they played poorly. Like, he even said they played. I mean, he's really got to stop saying these things. But yeah, he said that he thought they played poorly. He didn't think City had a great game, and I think he was right. I really didn't think they looked very good. The 4-1 scoreline flattered them a lot. West Ham, again, like, they weren't the team to exploit City's issues. Like, City are poor in transition defence, right? They don't have the legs in the midfield. They aren't able to get back. Kovacic and Lewis, when Lewis inverts into defensive midfield, they get caught out far too high. Like, oops. Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry guys, sorry for that. Losing me again. Yeah, I think I was saying Guardiola obviously playing a lot higher in that position. Lewis inverting, and then they just got like two in the back, and they just don't have the defence there. So yeah, I think City defence is a massive avoid. You've got to try and get out of it. Even Guardiola now, he's just not looking like a good option. If you've got, unless Kyle Walker comes back in that right back role, when Kyle Walker comes back in that right back role, City play a back three. Guardiola can then go on down that left-hand side. That's when he gets into those nice attacking positions that's so good, and he's such a good asset. But at the moment, when Rico Lewis is inverting into defensive midfield alongside Kovacic, then Guardiola has to be part of that back three. And he's not given that license to get forwards as much down the left-hand side. And that's obviously what he needs to sort of change. So yeah, I think that's sort of the key for him. What are your thoughts on Brentford v City next week, Gaz? Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think Brentford could slaughter them. Honestly, like Brentford in transition, a fantastic team. They commit a lot of players forwards, and as you saw against Southampton, they had Whistler, Mbumo, Sharda, Norgard, Damsgaard, like all of these guys, like sort of bombing forwards. And City could concede a lot of goals next week. I would definitely not be playing any City defenders if you can help it. In your FPL teams next week, I'd look to avoid as many as you can. And yeah, I think if you don't have Mbumo, I'd definitely look to either get him or a Whistler in next week into your FPL team, because I think they could absolutely annihilate City next week. Brentford at home as well. And I know like there's been that discussion about Brentford home and away form, and I think we'll talk about it when we get onto the sort of Brentford slides. But I mean, they've just played all their difficult games away from home and all their easier games at home. So I think you'll see that flick around as we go on through the season. West Ham side, like I said, they don't really have the players to exploit City's weaknesses. They're not a good transition team either. Obviously, they had Kudus and Somerville, which are great, but those are predominantly down the wings. And they don't really have that sort of those players in the central areas to cause problems for City, and that's where you need to exploit City in the central areas in transition. I think that is the sort of best way to exploit that defence where they struggle. Paqueta, another thing to comment on is I just thought he was so loose with the ball. He's playing these little back flicks in his own half and giving the ball away. This has been one of West Ham's problems this year. He's given the ball away and they've not been able to recover in transition because of their like slow midfield, and that's actually led to quite a few issues and goals conceded this season. For me, he's just, I don't know, not someone that I like particularly. I don't think he plays particularly fantastic passes that he's superbly creative for West Ham or anything. I don't like him as a player. Personal perspective. Yeah, so again, both predictions correct. Both teams to score, Man City to win. Palace v Chelsea. So I thought this was an interesting game again. Palace set up in that 3-4-2-1 formation that we spoke about. Two holding midfielders and then Sarr and Eze in the 10 role behind Mateta. Obviously, we had a big chat about Munoz playing on the right as well in the deadline stream. I did think Munoz again picked up some really nice attacking positions for Palace. I thought he flew down that right hand side really well. got into some super high positions, played a beautiful cross into the box for Eze, who was arriving late, who should have scored really. And yeah, I think like the way that Palace set up has been really good for them. Like, only the Arsenal game was where they changed it up and tried to play like 5 at the back and got slaughtered. But in the rest of their games, they're 1 defeat from 9 games, and that is just been great since they've moved to this sort of 3-4-2-1 setup. I think it suits them really well. Sarr's obviously that dynamic runner that pushes on, runs in behind. Mateta's able to hold the ball up. He's able to like pass on through. He's also able to drop the ball back off to Eze. Eze's able to be creative, hit the passes either through to a running Sarr, through to Mateta running on through. And then he's sort of someone who's a little bit more creative and like arrives late, maybe hits longer shots or arrives late into the box rather than Sarr, who's sort of running on beyond. So yeah, I think that sort of Palace front 3 do link up nicely. Personally, I probably wouldn't. It's hard because I think my shout would be to go for Sarr of the 3 of them. I think Mateta is a little bit too expensive as a striker to want to go into. And I think Eze is obviously a little bit more of a creative. The reason that I prefer Sarr obviously is because I think he's more of a goal threat. And I know, having said that, Eze had some great opportunities to score. But I mean, he's sort of points dodged like that all season so far. So I think it's tricky with Palace. I definitely wouldn't go for more than one of their front 3 because Palace don't score that many goals. So yeah, okay, they might have nice fixtures. Tactically, all 3 of them are going to play pretty good minutes. But yeah, realistically, they're not going to score tons of goals every game. So if you're going to go for one, you can't be expecting them to be returning for you every week. Like, someone might return, but that's not always going to be the case. From a Chelsea perspective, I thought Chelsea played pretty well. I thought Jackson positionally fantastic again. Got into some really great positions, had some great chances. Palmer and Jackson link up was fantastic with the through ball to Jackson for that goal. Palace didn't man mark Palmer, and that really allowed him to get in between the lines a little bit, pick up the ball in some space, and he was obviously very effective in that game. Got the goal, deservedly so, and played really well. I just thought Jackson's finishing in the last couple of weeks, it's weird because at the beginning of the season I felt this way about his finishing, that I didn't think he was the best finisher, and then he went on a really good run where he just turned it around. He was learning tactically the positions to be taking up. He was learning how to drop deep, and I think I mentioned he almost played like a Harry Kane role for Chelsea, where he'd be able to drop deep, pick up the ball, let Palmer and Enzo run in beyond and play the pass, or drop it off for someone else to play the pass, and he also had the pace to sort of run in behind. So I thought he really had that sort of tactical positioning really down for Chelsea, which I don't think any of their other strikers do. But then he switched on his finishing as well and started finishing superbly, a lot of chances. And then I think the last sort of 2-3 games, he just hasn't quite been able to find that form again, which has been sort of a problem for Chelsea as they've gone on. And I think that's definitely something to look at going forwards. But listening to Maresca's press conference afterwards, like, he also thought the team were playing well, and that was sort of why he didn't really make any changes until late on. And just because of like an energy thing, to keep the energy up in the team, which I think makes perfect sense with the Palace sort of counter and running that they have on their side. So yeah, we went for both teams to score in this game. Thought Palace would get something. They did manage to grab a late goal. Another correct prediction. If no questions on that, we'll jump into Southampton-Brentford. Disappointing, I would say, for Southampton. I thought that they defensively had been looking better over the last couple of weeks. Their ability to play out long, hold up the ball with Onuachu, Dibling's been able to sort of pick up that second ball drive them forwards with his running. And I do think they do look slightly better offensively because they're obviously able to sort of win a few of those balls, and then they're able to get up a little bit higher up the pitch and start from higher up. They don't have the technical quality or the skills in their team to be able to pass the ball out from the back like Russell Martin wanted, and obviously just had zero idea where to be passing when they were doing that. Their defence were obviously far too narrow, didn't understand spatially where to be positioned to be passing the ball out from the defence like that. Technically weren't good enough players to be able to do that. So this sort of allows Southampton to get out of the back a little bit more, the way that they've shaped up here. So I do prefer it for them for both defensive and attacking standpoint. But yeah, I just didn't think they defended well in that second half. I've got to give it to Brentford. I thought they were excellent. The link-up play was really good. But I think it was, from Southampton's perspective, a little bit of a lack of cohesion in that back three. I'm not sure they've played together all that much this season, that specific back three. A bit of a mix-up for one of the goals. Obviously, the penalty was poor defending. And then, yeah, some nice play from Brentford as well. So I do have to commend Brentford on the way they played, because I thought that Mbeumo, Schade and Wissa, their link-up play was just exceptional in that game. Wissa was obviously would drift into the centre for some of the longer balls, flick on headers. Did I say Wissa? Schade would drift into the middle, flick on the headers, etc. And Wissa, as I've spoken about all season, just has just that most incredible footballing IQ to be just picking up positions, grabbing the ball in those right positions, getting into the goal-scoring opportunities. Did miss an absolute sitter in that game, which I thought was a little bit surprising from him. But yeah, I think his footballing IQ is off the charts. And yeah, I would have loved him to square that last one for Mbeumo for a 25-pointer. But I'll let him off because I do like Wissa. So I think from an FPL perspective, I'd definitely been looking. Niels, who would I prefer between Mbeumo and Gordon as an Odegaard replacement? I think that's a really good question. I actually think I would prefer. I'm not sure if it's a little bit knee-jerky to this week, but I mean, I brought him in last week anyway. I think I'd prefer Mbeumo. Definitely for next week in that Man City game. Obviously, the Liverpool in 22 is a tough one for him. And then after that, Palace, Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester are really nice. So through to 26, I'd say Mbeumo has some really nice games. After that, maybe from like 28, then you got Gordon, looks really nice with West Ham, Palace, Brentford, Leicester, United, Villa, Ipswich, Brighton, all the way to 35. So I'd probably say if you go for Mbeumo, especially for the next sort of 6, 7, maybe even 8, 6 or 7 weeks, and then you can switch to a Gordon after that. I think likely everyone's got Isak, and Newcastle have obviously got to score multiple goals a game to get multiple returns. I think Mbeumo for me is the nicer pick, also on penalties as well, not to be overlooked. In a Brighton team that score a lot of goals, and I think their away games this season, their away games coming up in the second half of the season, are far easier, and one of the reasons why I think they struggled away from home. So again, Southampton being a prime example of this with the 5-0 win. The rest of their away games, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Leicester, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Arsenal, Forest, Ipswich, Wolves, like basically all the bottom half of the team, they're playing now away from home. So all their home games were essentially against them first half of the season, which was probably why their home form was so good. So you do have to take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt with that sort of home away swing. I don't think it's that huge. There are certain teams in the Premier League where the sort of home away swing is quite big. And I wonder if I have the data to hand for anybody that I can sort of pull up for you guys. I think I do, yeah. Home away tables. Yeah, let's get this on screen. I was thinking of Mbeumo after Liverpool, but now I wish I'd done it this game week. Yeah, I took the -4 this week from Mbeumo, so best -4 I've ever taken in my life, really. Let me move myself a little bit. Just shrink myself to a corner. But yeah, if you look at that sort of home away, you can obviously see Brentford right down here, a little bit ridiculous with like the 5 points away and 22 at home. But realistically, like a lot of the teams are pretty similar. I think it does also show, if I show you here, the relative home and away performance. So if it's green, they're better at home, and that's how much better at home they are. Like points per game, basically, the difference. So like there are teams that are better away from home, like Liverpool, Forest, Chelsea, West Ham, Wolves, Ipswich. Like there's not a huge difference. The teams where they have the big swings are Brentford, Villa, City and Arsenal. I would say City are probably a team where they do play better at home in front of their fans. Arsenal, again, I think ultimately played their easy home games and they've got a nicer away run. So their away fixtures in the second half of the season are Wolves, Leicester, Forest, United, Everton, Ipswich, Liverpool and Southampton. So they're sort of, again, playing all those difficult games. So realistically, the sort of home away swing that everyone talks about, in my opinion, is not as big a gap as people think it is. So I would take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt, sort of your home away fixtures for your teams. It's more about the tactical matchups against the teams that you're playing and what sort of time of the season that you're playing against those teams. Like if you catch City while they're playing at the moment, it's a good time to be playing against them. If you catch Tottenham at the moment with no defenders, it's a great time to be playing against them. So I think those are the sort of things that you probably want to be considering from that perspective. And moving on then to Brighton v Arsenal, 1-1 draw. If I've got to be honest, I think this was probably the game I least enjoyed watching this week. I thought it was a really poor game of football. I think both teams looked poor, looked like they were teams that were both out of form. And I really think that these are the sort of games for Arsenal where if they want to win the league this year, they've got to find a way of winning ugly. They've got to find a way of winning ugly, and they just didn't manage to do it. And I know there's obviously the penalty drama. But look, if you're a team, and we'll talk about that, but if you're a team that's trying to win the league, you've got to find a way of scoring. You've got to find a way of scoring another goal. You've got to find a way of winning that game regardless of what happens. And they just lack that creative threat. I know that Odegaard was on the bench and they did say that he was feeling a little bit ill and had a bit of an illness. But man, you've got to put out your best teams for like these crucial games that they're playing. They need to get those sort of wins, put the pressure on Liverpool a little bit. If they'd have got within 3 points of them, that would have really put the pressure on. Liverpool against Man United, never an easy game playing against Man United. So yeah, I thought they did lack a lot of creativity and cutting edge. They actually only had 3 shots on target in the game. And even their defending with Gabriel and Saliba at times just looked a bit panicked, less composed than they usually are. Arsenal defence, I would say, hasn't really performed the way we would have expected them this season. I know there's been games where they've been unfortunate to just concede one, especially from an FPL standpoint. But yeah, I think they don't have a particularly sort of fast-paced and high-energy game. And this sort of goes on to a point that I want to talk about. It's like, why do they need to rotate so frequently with the style of football they play? They don't play high energy, like high press. They don't have like plenty of runners through the midfield running in behind. That's not the style that they play. They have a slow build up. They move the ball around. They try and move the opposition defence out of shape. and then when they see an opportunity, they try to attack. So for me, like, your players have got to be better conditioned, and this goes on to. I think if you've watched some of the old Man United players and some of their podcasts that they do, they always said, yeah, Arsenal don't have a good medical department. They're fit, they're always injured. All their players are always injured. And when United used to play them, they used to go kick them, nibble at them, get into them, because they're not well conditioned. They don't. I don't know who is in their physio and medical department, but they've got they're always picking up injuries, and like they're having to rotate all those players. Goes on to discussion of something that I was looking up recently of sort of football and the drama of how, you know, they say that football, they're playing a lot more games these days than they have done in previous years. And I did a little bit of research into that to just sort of have a look and see whether this was actually the case, and whether Premier League teams nowadays play more fixtures than they used to. Because, like, ultimately, yeah, teams used to rotate, but there wasn't as much sort of drama around this sort of thing. And actually, when you look at the data, it's actually a case of they don't play more games anymore. And I think the difference, these days is obviously, like, football has advanced to a stage where you need to cover more ground and do a lot more running, and it's a lot more high energy and intense. But from an Arsenal perspective, it's not. That's not the case. So they need to have a real look internally at their sort of physio medical department and conditioning, and work out why their players are picking up all these injuries. Because, in my opinion, it's something that they definitely need to resolve in that team if they want to win a league. They can't be rotating their best player or their second best player in a game where their best player is already injured. In an important game to put pressure on the leaders. Odegaard needs to be playing in that game. Anyway, that's my 2 pence on that sort of situation. Obviously, the João Pedro penalty was a contentious decision, to say the least. I've sort of had a look at it. You do obviously see Saliba does make contact with the ball. It is a bit of a clash of heads. I don't really know what the laws are here, to be honest. I couldn't tell you what the laws are here. He does touch the ball, and then they clash heads. So whether that wasn't spotted, I don't know. I'm pretty sure players clash heads all the time off corners. So I was surprised that was given as a penalty, to be honest. I was surprised that was given as a penalty. To be honest, I don't have too much to add on that, because I really don't know what the laws say on that, because you see that in the box all the time off corners, all the time. So surprised it was given. Obviously it was given. Arsenal got to find a way to win that game still. And Brighton, I thought, again, were also not great. Didn't play very well. Lacked a lot of creativity. Struggling without Welbeck, as I've talked about. I think the link-up play with João Pedro and Welbeck, he really allows João Pedro in that 10 role to play a much sort of freer role, able to be involved in the build-up as well as sort of running on behind as well. Similar to the sort of Sarr, Mateta, Jackson, Palmer link-up. I feel like João Pedro and Welbeck also have that nice link-up play. Hertzler's trying to find a solution. He's obviously rotating those players a lot at the moment, and just hasn't quite been able to find the solution that he needs. Still working on something for Brighton. Bournemouth v Everton, probably the easiest clean sheet to predict. Obviously went with my prediction, Bournemouth clean sheet, and that was 6 out of 6 for me this week. All 6 predictions on how the games were going to go were spot on. First time I've got 6 out of 6. I think I got a few 5 out of 6s in the first bit. First time 6 out of 6 in the season, so I was pretty pleased with that. I think the fact that Broja had to come off for Everton is really tough for them. they really struggle and lack a lot of offensive output, especially with Dwight McNeil unable to fill in that 10 role for Everton at the moment. I think Broja and the physicality that he was bringing to that team and the ability to run with the ball, carry the ball in possession is something that I don't really feel Calvert-Lewin has up front, or Beto, and just provide a different avenue for them to hold on to the ball and have a bit more possession and have that ability to then get the team up the pitch and score goals. But yeah, I really didn't feel like they had the greatest game at all from an offensive standpoint, and that's been Everton's problem this whole season. That's been Sean Dyche's problem, and something that he needs to work out how he's going to fix for the team, because if he can't fix that for them, then they're going to be in trouble this season. They can't keep staying up on 0-0 draws. They've got to find a way to score a goal. And their upcoming fixtures are really the chance that they have to score goals, because they've got Villa, Tottenham, Brighton, Leicester, Palace, Man United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham. If they haven't got some results leading up to game week 30 and they're in that relegation zone, they have no chance they're staying up, because they have a tough run in. So Everton have really got to pick it up over these next few weeks. Hi Aussie Herman, are you bringing in Everton players for the double game week? Great question, Herman. Look, I am not at the moment planning to. I think there's obviously the question of do you bring in an Everton defender or midfielder? Definitely not Calvert-Lewin for that sort of double game week. Given obviously you can get those additional points. However, one of their games that double game week is going to be against Liverpool, and Liverpool could easily just win 5-0. Like, honestly, they can just win 5-0. That's a 1 or a 0 pointer, and then sorry, just getting DM. And then yeah, that's basically just a 1 game week for them. So they would just have one game in that week, and then is it worth bringing in the Everton players over that period of time? I think if you are looking to bring in those Everton players, 24-25, Leicester, Palace, Man United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham, it's not the worst run of fixtures for them. So if you did want to bring in a Mikalenko just off the fact that the Everton fixtures are reasonably nice from 24 through to 29, maybe that's where you're sort of dead ending into a free hit and then using some chips. That could be something worth doing. Dwight McNeil, obviously, if he comes back into the team and Everton find a little bit more consistency going forwards, also could be something to look at. For my team at the moment, I'm not looking to bring in any Everton players. I will have a think about whether I want to look to bring in a Mikalenko in the defence, because I am looking to move Vardio out, and I need to move him down to somebody that gives me enough money to bring in Alisson for Ramsdale. So it's a question of, do I want to go to a Castagna off to bed? Niels, nice one, mate. Have a good sleep. Thanks for joining. Catch you another time. Good luck for the rest of the week. Hopefully everything works out in your favour. I might quickly check if we've received any news on the Liverpool United game, actually. The latest decision on the match going ahead has been delayed until midday. The safety authority group will reconvene at midday due to expected changes in weather conditions. Wow. Alright, well that doesn't sound particularly promising, to be honest. If we look at some of the... what are they saying for the weather around midday? What are they saying about the midday weather? Is it supposed to get worse around that time? Snow will become persistent locally heavy as it pushes south to north across the warning area. Milder air follows across all areas by Sunday morning. 3 to 7 centimetres of snow is likely for much of the area. Wow. Milder air leads to thaw of snow and ice in the south of the warning area through Sunday. Yeah, guys, I think there's obviously a chance that this game could get called off. There will be a further update at midday. I obviously won't still be streaming in 2 hours' time. But yeah, I'll try and stay up to date with what's happening. But it looks like Liverpool Man United game is being postponed. I don't think that's reliable. On for now. On for now. Wow. Would be pretty crazy if Liverpool had another double game week. Would be pretty crazy. And then they probably double in 24 and 25. And if they double in 24 and 25, that assistant manager chip looks like something that we would definitely be looking to play. Imagine if they had United, what's the 24? Yeah, Bournemouth. They'd have United and Bournemouth in 24 and Everton and Wolves in 25. Man, that would be tough not to play the triple manager chip, the assistant manager chip for 2 Liverpool doubles. Ooh, I don't think I could resist that. I really don't think I could resist that. And they got Man City in 26. I wouldn't even have to change it. They're going to dominate Man City and just stick with Slot for 3 weeks. Yeah, well, let's find out. 12 o'clock, the announcement will be. There is some fake news on Twitter about the game being called off, but it hasn't been called off yet. It is still on for now. They will be reconvening at 12 PM UK time for a further update. Yeah, so these were the predictions that I had for this week. And guys, if you want any discussion on your team for next week or transfer plans, please post your team ID below. I'll pull your teams up on the screen and we can talk through, do a team review, talk through potential transfer plans for you for the upcoming game weeks. And also, like, we'll obviously continue to talk about the weather if there's any further updates. For the time being, game still on and further meeting at 12. Yeah, so these are the predictions for this week. We're obviously 7 out of 7, sorry, not even 6 out of 6, 7 out of 7 for this week for predictions. And we got Fulham v Ipswich, 2 or less goals. Could be a Fulham clean sheet for those Robinson owners or Castagna owners, might be nice. Salah to return against Man United. If it's a postponement, I'm counting it. I'm not letting my clean sweep of a week be spoiled by a postponement. And then Forest v Wolves, both teams to score. I'd probably say the Wolves scoring is a little bit less likely, obviously with Cunha being banned for this game week. But that's what we are looking at for this week. Obviously, my team at the moment, this is what it's looking like for this week. We have scored 49 points so far. We are on 35k in rank at the moment, with 3 players left to play and Salah captain still to go. I imagine that Salah captain is pretty much everybody in the world at the moment who has their captaincy on Salah. If that game does get called off between Liverpool and United, that's probably not ideal for me. the vice captaincy would go on to Alexander Isak, who did get 7 points. Should have viced Mbumo against Southampton. That would have been superb. Then I would have been begging for it to be called off. And then FaZe will come off the bench for Trent for me for 1 pointer. And then hopefully Chris Wood goes ahead. But at the moment, the game is still on until 12. Up to 35k. I think my transfer plans for sort of next week is likely to roll the transfer. I think the fixtures look reasonable. I'm not particularly concerned about my team for the next game week. I don't really have any plans, and maybe I'll show you what the team looks like for game week 21. Team would look something like this for game week 21. Ramsdale in goal against United. Could keep clean sheet, you never know. Hall against Wolves. Timber against Tottenham. Trent against Forest. Rodgers against Everton. And Mbumo, Gordon and Palmer. And I might be putting the captaincy chip on Brian Mbumo next week. He might be my captain next week. I know that's crazy, but I just think Brentford against Man City is a fantastic game for Brentford. They could slice Man City open in transition and could easily score 2 or 3 goals again. Nottingham Forest was the one fixture, or one of the 2 or 3 fixtures so far this season that Salah has blanked in. I think it could be a good week to go against the Mo. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in this Man United game. If Mo scores 4, probably going to struggle to say don't captain him again next week. But I think that's probably what my transfer is. My plans are for next week is just to roll the transfer. Moving forwards and looking at sort of some of the future weeks, I think what I'd be looking to do here is probably make 2 transfers. And this would be Ramsdale to Alisson and Gvardiol to 4.7. So I don't know who I could afford potentially. Munoz. It would either be a Munoz, Castagna at 4.2 or Mikolenko 4.3. Or in the case that Liverpool versus Man United game does get postponed, there is obviously potential to go into some United players. Does that then make Bruno Fernandes a great option going forwards? Does that make Bruno the guy? And if that's the case, then I probably need to make some money to get him into my team. So it would likely be that I have to go to like a Castagna or a Mikolenko. And then I wonder if we did that, blimey, did do that. Who would we need to move? Is it Mbumo or would it be Gordon? Because who else do we? It would have to be one of the 2. Probably wouldn't want to be Mbumo. It'd probably have to be Gordon just for a few weeks. 24 to 27 would be Gordon to Bruno Fernandes. Don't quite have money for that, but that is roughly what I'd be looking at. That is roughly what I'd be looking at. I wonder if I just refresh this if I do have the money, because this was like before I made my Trent move pretty early. Foggy, who would be your number 1 defender, midfielder and forward? At the moment in the game, I think my number 1 midfielder, obviously Salah. But if you exclude Salah and Palmer, say my number one midfielder is probably Brian Mbeumo at the moment over the next few weeks. I know people could think it's a bit reactionary after this game, but I think his fixture run's exceptional. Brentford v Man City, great game. Liverpool obviously tough, but then after that, Palace, Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester, all really good fixtures. Then Everton, Villa, Bournemouth, like okay, not amazing. But I think he's probably the best at that sort of like middle price point for sure at the moment. Also on penalties. Brentford, a team who scored a lot of goals as well. So I think he'd be my number one midfielder. Forward is Isak for me, like no doubt. But if we're going away from the main options, I would probably say it's either a Chris Wood. It's probably Chris Wood, and then it would be like Nicholas Jackson, Wissa, and just below them Jesus, but also like really nice differential Jesus. I haven't convinced myself yet that I'd like to do an Mbeumo and Wissa double up for Brentford. That like the way I've done a Gordon Isak Hall triple up. I've just got to sort of be really convinced that they're going to score a lot of goals. But maybe I need to think about it because I think Jesus is going to struggle if Arsenal continue to play the way that they've been playing recently. Yeah, and then defender-wise, I'd like to wait for the Fulham game versus Ipswich to give my conclusion, because I'd probably still say it's Robinson at the moment. I think Fulham have the best fixtures. Robinson's been basically playing on the left wing for them over the last couple of games. But I want to see how they shape up from a tactical perspective. I think the Fulham formation's one that I haven't been able to predict over the last couple of weeks, and they definitely mix things up a little bit. So yeah, I'd definitely like to see that Ipswich game before I made a call. But at the moment, it'd probably be Robinson, Munoz and Hall, and then maybe like Trent and Milenkovic/Einar, like in those tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with Gabriel probably in that Trent tier as well. Tier 3, I would say. That's probably my favourite defender, midfielder, forward. Yeah, so I guess like what my transfers are looking to be: move Guardiola, bring in Alisson, and try and find a way to Bruno. Is that possible? 4 mil. Quanta? I can't do it. Yeah, I mean that's obviously doesn't quite work getting to Bruno. Yeah, I mean perhaps Jesus needs to go at some point, but like ultimately I've got to start thinking about saving some transfers soon. So if I can't get to Bruno for the double game week, no worries, Foggy. Thanks for being in here on the chat as well. Yeah, sorry. So I think that's sort of my thoughts going forwards. If that Liverpool game does get called off, you've obviously got to think about. Definitely got to think about. United players. Decision delayed until midday. Liverpool tweeted the following as a further meeting will take place at 12 p.m. Signs of hope wherever you look. Does the Gerrard in this film? Yeah, so Liverpool Airport is open. That's good news. So it looks like that's good news. Good news. They'll obviously reconvene at 12, but it's looking like maybe the game will be on after all, which is obviously great news for anyone that owns Salah and Trent. But to be honest, in those conditions, that's going to make the game a lot more difficult for Liverpool and a lot better for Man United. It's going to be a lot scrappier of a game. a lot smoother, a lot less smooth, a lot more difficult for Mo Salah and his pace and running in behind. Obviously, the ball will hold up, so maybe those long balls over the top from Van Dijk. Maybe depend if there's dew on the pitch, then maybe it will skid on. But yeah, if there is snow, and the snow is not sort of melted, so to say, it would definitely be something to consider. I think that's most of the reaction sort of stuff that I wanted to talk through. I wanted to obviously talk through the transfer plans. I've talked through my team at the moment, how we're looking, sitting at 35k, so living my life at the moment, hoping the best for that Liverpool game and Chris Wood later. And then I'll probably put out after the Liverpool games and the Forest game. Where's the Forest game? Tuesday? Maybe I won't wait for the Forest game. I'll probably put out the tactical observations and statistical analysis on after the Forest game. Maybe I'll do the buy, sell, hold. Or maybe I'll do the tactical and statistical first this week. And then I'll do buy, sell, hold on the Tuesday after the Forest Wolves game, and then we can talk through that. But yeah, guys, I know I made this stream subscribers only comments today. Was hoping to sort of try and pick up a few new subscribers to the channel. I really obviously appreciate all of you guys that have been tuning in, and if you are watching this post the stream and you do enjoy my content, you do enjoy the sort of tactical side of the game and talking through those sort of interesting tactical thoughts on a lot of the teams, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I will be putting out videos each week talking through all those games. We'll also show the statistical analysis alongside that, and then make a more well-rounded choice for you guys on who the best players are to buy, sell, and avoid, and hold. Look out for those two videos coming up this week, and then obviously the deadline stream later in the week. Subscribe to the channel for all that good stuff. In the meantime, have a great week. Hope everything goes well for the rest of the week. Thanks, Jonesy. Thanks, mate. Appreciate you joining in today. Thanks to all of you guys that called out for this reaction stream. Have enjoyed it. Good luck to everyone this week. It's been your English Aussie. Have a great weekend.